Yeah, man, we be jamming, smoking the ganja, man. Hello, everybody. Naylor1904 here, and today we'll be reviewing the Exodus album by Bob Marley and the Wailers. So, just to get a little background, Jamaica was really struggling during this time. This album was made in 1977, and Jamaica was struggling with racism and inequality and political backdrop and political issues. Eventually, in the summer of '76, Bob Marley was in his house, just making music, chilling, and these people went to his house and shot him and shot him a couple times. But Bob Marley was somehow still alive. He did not die. He was alive, and he actually performed 3 days later. He performed a concert. A lot of people thought he was going to cancel it, but he didn't, and he performed it. And he decided that it was his time in Jamaica, and that he needed to flee and from the country so he could be safe. And so he fled to Britain in '77, and that's when he started to make this album. And this album started to become as a protest album, kind of an anthem for the trouble in Jamaica that had been going on at this time. And so that's some of the themes that we see on this album is inequality and government oppression and racism. And so that's some of the things that Bob Marley kind of tackles on this album. And kind of just to get into this album, before this, Bob Marley had been pretty established at this point. He had made a lot of albums with the Wailers, and he had been making music for about 12 years to this point. And so a lot of people knew him. He was super famous. He wasn't really famous outside of Jamaica, but after this album, that's kind of when he started to gain his fame of around the world. But he had been pretty well known in Jamaica, which is, hence the reason why he was shot, because people didn't agree with him and what he believed. And he was held to a really high standard at this point, kind of like a prophet, if you will. And so Bob Marley had been established at this point. This isn't like a debut breakout album. Bob Marley had been made some great albums up till this point, and looking back on his career, this is probably his best project. So kind of just to get into it, the first song, Natural Mystic, one of Bob Marley's hits in his career, one of the best on the album. This album kind of plays out as two parts, 10 songs. The first 4 songs kind of talk about racism and the politics, and it's very much calling out the government, and it's very dark. And then the second half is kind of the last 4 songs are kind of talking about what could happen if there was actually peace in this country, if there actually was happiness, and if there was not racism and discrimination. And then you have the middle song, which kind of like brings the two together. But so the first half is very political. It's very calling out different political figures. And on the first song, Natural Mystic, Bob Marley is basically saying that the Jamaican people have to suffer because the religion he was part of was the Rastafari movement, and he believed that the Jamaicans were the descendants of the Israelites. And so he believed that God said that they had to suffer, and that's just how it had to be. And so that's what he's saying when he says a natural mystic. Throughout this album, you have really great songwriting by Bob Marley. He truly is one of the greatest songwriters of all time. And so this song is a very you have that first instrumental. It's like do do do. It's very just like very dark, very deep. The bass lines on this album is so amazing. I love the bass lines, and especially in this first song, it's just this driving beat that takes you to the finish of the song. And of course Bob Marley's vocals. Not a lot of people are a fan of his vocals, and I can see why. He just has a very unique voice, kind of like that of Jim Morrison, Bob Dylan. Very unique voice that is so easy to tell. Freddie Mercury, that you hear it in a second and you instantly know it. And so Bob Marley really has that voice. And again, say what you will, he's the voice of this country, and I give him that. I love Bob Marley's vocals. I think his singing voice is amazing, and especially in this first song, and just this whole first half of the album, where he's really pleading to the government to stop this oppression and have peace. And that kind of leads into the second song, after Natural Mystic, to So Much Things to Say, where Bob Marley is basically saying that he's not happy, and he has a lot of things that he wants to say to this government, and he makes some parallels, makes some comparisons to, he'll never forget Jesus Christ being crucified, and Marcus Garvey's rights being taken away from him, and just kind of alluding to stuff of the past of oppression on people. And it's a really great song. It's kind of upbeat, but it's also like the lyrics are not. And it's a great song. This first half of this album really transitions really well from each song to the next, which kind of breaks off in the second part, but it's still great nonetheless. And then the third song, Guiltiness, one of my favorites on the album. Such a great song, basically saying that, that this government that tries to materialize everything, they're going to be guilty one day, whether or not they see it or not, whether or not we see this on earth or not, they're going to be guilty because what they did is wrong to the Jamaican people. And it's a great song, and you can just really hear, Bob Marley's vocals. He's very emotional, he's like, guiltiness, I love his energy and his voice, and especially on this song. And he's really calling out, saying the big fish, they always eat the small fish, very capitalist, calling out capitalism song. And then that leads to the kind of last song on this protest part of the album. You have the song The Heathen, which doesn't really have much of a meaning, isn't too good of a song, but I still like it a lot, still has a lot of still has great singing and a great bass line. The first half of this album is also really reggae. Bob Marley is a reggae, and this is a reggae album, but the second half of the album, he kind of explores different genres of music, but this first half is very reggae, and I personally love the first half more. Second half, you have all the famous, songs that Bob Marley would become to be known for, but this first half is very underrated, and really sees Bob Marley at his reggae best, some of the best reggae music he made. And so then that leads to the fifth song, Exodus, which kind of brings both the parts of the album together. Again, in Exodus, he's alluding to the Israelites and Moses and being freed from Egypt, and it's kind of that transition to they were kind of treated like slaves before. They weren't slaves, but they were treated like slaves, and now they're on this journey to be free. And then the next half of the album is going to be that freedom that they get. And the second half is really where this album is really memorable and amazing, and where Bob Marley offers up a solution of what life could be if this oppression stopped, and if this racism stopped, and if we had peace in the world. And on the next song after Exodus, you have Jamming, which is a very, very famous song by Bob Marley. It's a great song. It's kind of like a party song. Not much going on lyrically, but it's just a very happy, dance song, and I love it, and I just love the drums in the song too. I love the drums of this whole album, but especially on this song, Jamming. And then that leads to Waiting in Vain. You have two love songs on the second half of this album, Waiting in Vain and Turn Your Lights Down Low, and Waiting in Vain is the first of the two, and again, it's a really famous song, a great song, kind of soulful in the way, whereas Jamming was a kind of a pop song. Waiting in Vain is kind of a soul song. Bob Marley just really hitting you, really just he's happy, and he loves the girl that he's with, and then that leads to Turn Your Lights Down Low, which again just further expands on that idea. Really great song, kind of an underrated song of Bob Marley's career, but another amazing song. And it's just this whole second half is just so happy, and there's so much love to be had. And then after Turn Your Lights Down Low, it leads to the next song, which is Three Little Birds, which everyone knows. Everybody knows that song, so famous. And it's such a happy song, probably the most happiest song I've heard from Bob Marley's career. And yeah, again, just what could be if we could get peace, in Jamaica. And then the last song, One Love, People Get Ready, which is has lines written by the Impressions song, People Get Ready in 1965. This song kind of is influenced by that, but it's also Bob Marley, takes from that piece, from the Impressions, but he also makes it his original and his own. And again, is a very popular song, and is a great way to end this album, and the impact this album had. I know a lot of people don't really like Bob Marley. I can understand. Reggae is not the most famous genre of music, but you cannot deny Bob Marley's impact on reggae and on popular music and in politics in the world. I mean, after this album, we started seeing change in Jamaica, and we started seeing peace because people started realizing what Bob Marley was saying was true. And then he eventually came back to the country and, shook hands with the political leaders that he, once called out, and there really started to be peace. And it's so amazing that really shows how, how far music can go. Music is not just something that we put in the background and listen to. It's something that has a deep message and can make an impact in the way we think and the way we view the world. And that's why I love this album so much. And again, if you don't like the music, you cannot deny the impact that this album had. I mean, the only other album that has a big impact like that is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, which even then doesn't have as big an impact because, I hate to say it, but America still struggles with some of the problems of racism. I'm not saying that Jamaica doesn't, I'm not saying that Jamaica is a perfect country, but to see that radical of a change in that short of a time from when Bob Marley released that album is just really encouraging, really awesome to see. And so I love it, and again, this is probably Bob Marley's best record. I mean, had the biggest impact in his career, and a lot of these songs on this album, like Waiting in Vain, Three Little Birds, One Love, Natural Mystic, some of the most famous songs, in Bob Marley's career that people, kind of came to know him by. And it really is a shame that he died only 4 years later after this album, because this is really when he was at his peak in his career, People didn't really think that he could reach this peak. They kind of thought that, after the album Catch a Fire or even like Burnin', that, that was the best albums he was going to make. And then he comes out with Exodus and completely changes the whole music landscape. And so you cannot deny that. Bob Marley's a genius. I love him. I love this album. And I give this album a 9.1 out of 10. And so tell me what your thoughts are on this album. Did you like it? I hope so, because it's a great album. And if you haven't heard it, then you should give it a listen. And thank you for watching, and have a great day.